Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the FirstPoint USA webinar this evening. My name's Ross Duncan. I'm Head of Marketing for FirstPoint USA, and I'm delighted to be joined by two experts on all things Division III, who are now colleagues of mine. We've got Craig O'Rourke II, who is the former head coach at Salve Regina University and a former soccer alum at WPI. Craig's role is now head of college scouting at FirstPoint USA in the Massachusetts area. So delighted to welcome Craig on the call. And we're also joined by another colleague, Murray Fraser. Murray is currently in the college placement team here at FirstPoint USA, and he's a men's soccer alum at Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. So delighted to have both guys on our webinar this evening to talk all things D3 and to hopefully give you some good insights, their experience and expertise of Division III as well. So we had a quick catch up late last week, which was very useful from my perspective. The guys, as you will find out, are very passionate about Division III. They come with a lot of knowledge, insights, both big fans still of watching D3 soccer, so I'm sure you'll all glean a lot of information out of this evening. We've got a chat box on the webinar, so if anybody does have any questions, just please put them in the chat box and we'll try and get through as many questions as we can. Probably keep most of them towards the end of the session, which will last probably between about 45 minutes to an hour. But if there's any relevant questions, we can segue them into the interviews as we go along. So we'll kick things off. You had enough from me, and we'll ask the guys a few questions. So Craig, just starting with you, if you want to just kind of give us your own background about your own college playing days, talk about your choice of college team and why you decided to go there.
Oh, certainly. Thank you to everyone for joining us. My playing days, as you mentioned, were spent at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, which is an NCAA Division III institution located in Worcester, Mass. The reason I selected WPI for my undergraduate education, it was kind of the happy marriage of everything that I wanted. It had my desired major, which at the time was chemical and metallurgical engineering, a mouthful to say, and something that I initially pursued as a freshman, and dare I say I did not graduate with that as a degree. At the same time, it had the proper size of school for me. I didn't want to be at a school too large. I wanted a small setting, and I wanted something geographically that kept me in the Northeast. Furthermore, I was being recruited by their coaching staff, so it kind of was the happy marriage of desired major, desired location, desired size, and the soccer that I wanted to play. Coming out of high school, my ability level translated best to NCAA Division III soccer, so finding an institution that checked off all the necessary boxes for me was simply absolutely perfect and ideal.
Good stuff. And yourself, Murray?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ross, and thanks to everyone for joining in. As Ross mentioned, I was at Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. Going through that recruitment process is just, you're navigating a lot of information. You're trying to figure out what the right fit is, and that's the most important part about the whole process, is finding that good fit for your needs and what you're looking to achieve on and off the field, in the classroom. And I felt that Trinity gave me everything I was looking for. And when you're talking to different coaches and you're looking online at different things and trying to figure out what the best fit is, trying to tick as many boxes as possible, and speaking to Coach McGinley many times and feeling very wanted and valued by what he had to say, and drawn into that possibility was ultimately why I went there. So I studied business. I didn't really go into it with knowing I was going to do business. I think I declared in my second year, and going into a program that had won a lot of games, that was regular conference champion and always a perennial powerhouse going into the national tournament, was a big draw. And even considering different opportunities at all levels, including D1, D2 or other ones as well, all around the US, the lure of sunshine for someone in Scotland was always quite nice as well. So down in San Antonio was gave me plenty of that, and had a great experience, and still follow the boys regularly as well with that.
Sounds good, and obviously good choice for both of you, and very relevant to what you went on to do or what you are doing in your careers now. Craig, I know you're a very experienced coach, 26 seasons in the roles and 17 at the helm at Salve. What made it so special about coaching there? And I guess with that, how passionate have you become about your involvement in D3?
Oh, that's a good question, Ross. I think for me, looking at my trajectory in terms of how I approached my coaching career, initially coming out of my undergraduate studies, I was working at a summer camp, and I got asked by the director of the camp, who happened to be an NCAA Division III head coach, if I would be interested in joining his coaching staff. And long story made short, I went on to become his goalkeeping coach and eventually an assistant coach on his staff at Roger Williams University in my home state of Rhode Island. Roger Williams is in Bristol, Rhode Island. That was my first taste of college coaching. And that then segued into me deciding, upon concluding my studies, I went on to earn a master's in business administration from the University of Rhode Island. That was actually my final year coaching at Roger Williams University. And I left coaching for a brief period to go into industry, and I worked in the electronic evidence discovery industry, which is a big mouthful to say that I snooped through people's emails. I really didn't enjoy it. And what really kind of resonated with me was that first fall, when the air started to get crisp and the leaves started to turn, and I longed to be back on the field coaching. And I came to kind of coin the phrase, which I told all of my players, the fall is not for anything but the college soccer season. It's not for presidential elections. It certainly isn't for weddings. I always would tell them if they invited me to their wedding and it was in the fall, most likely I would not attend because it would be in conflict with the college soccer season. So I decided to look for a job that took me back to college soccer, but recognizing that I would have to be a head coach to make it my full-time living, I knew I might have to take a step back from college soccer in order to get those two words on my resume, those words being head coach. So I actually accepted a position that led me north to the state of Maine, and never in a million years did I think I would ever say that I lived and worked in the state of Maine. But I did for 4 years as a head coach at a prep school, and I parlayed that into applying for head coaching jobs in the college ranks. And I was very, very fortunate to be offered the head position at Salve Regina University, which is in Newport, Rhode Island, which then allowed me to come back to my home state where I had started my education, started my coaching career, had been raised. So it was absolutely divinity. It was perfect for me to return to my home state, to become a head coach at the level that I had played at, NCAA Division III. And I spent 17 wonderful seasons leading the men's soccer program at Salve Regina. We had several seasons where we were regionally ranked. We had 4 seasons where we actually ventured into that divine realm that Trinity likes to be mentioned in, and being nationally ranked. And I even was blessed in 2018 with an undefeated season where we actually rose as high as number 14 in the nation. Unfortunately, we were upset in the postseason, as ultimately most teams that go undefeated are, where they take their first loss at the worst time possible. But honestly, what I look back on in my coaching career and remember with the greatest degree of fondness is the people and the connections that I was able to make and forge with all of my players. I used to tell them that the greatest lessons that I would teach them have absolutely nothing to do with college soccer, that the passion for soccer is just simply what brought us all together and permitted me the opportunity to impart the pearls of wisdom. And they probably didn't think there were pearls of wisdom at the time, but I was fortunate enough to have a number of alumni come back and tell me that those things that I gave them about being mature, being upfront, being honest, work ethic, putting forth your best with each and every opportunity that life gives you, those are the things that resonated them the most and that they took forward into their personal and professional careers after they left me. I always tell my players that the NCAA only gives you 4 years of eligibility. And the reason for that is if they didn't, people like myself and Murray would still be trying to play the sport that we became so passionate about. College soccer is limited to those 4 seasons. Head coaches, frankly, a colleague once said this to me, we are just student athletes that never wanted to grow up. We continue to chase that divine adrenaline rush that comes with a big win. When you get that victory and claim that championship, that adrenaline is what we always continue to seek, even as head coaches. So Division III was clearly the right choice for me as a player, and I was very blessed to say that I was able to partake in it as a head coach as well.
Great, and we'll come on to more about your experiences there, Craig. And just, I guess, for those in the audience who are maybe not as aware, and we'll come to you first on this one, Murray. What are the key differences, say, between D3 and D1, and what would make D3 more attractive to certain players, in your opinion?
Well, the main difference in terms of an athletic point of view is going to be the funding given to athletes. Of course, your Division III schools can't offer you that athletic scholarship. There are other ways that I'm sure we'll get into that you can have that, merit aid or needs-based aid that can help reduce costs, of course. But a large difference is going to be the size of the school. Generally, the larger schools tend to be in Division I. It's not always the case. You look at some of the Division III schools that are still state schools in New York or Wisconsin, and some of those will have 20,000, 30,000 enrollment as well, which are huge campuses. And in terms of athletic playing level, then we'll talk about it again in more depth in terms of players finding that right fit, of course. But you're going to find more of the elite players probably will tend to gravitate to Division I. May not always be the case they'll start there, but they might go there eventually. Division III schools has a bit more of a focus in terms of the academic side. So you're going to go in with, for example, the spring season is a lot more rigorous perhaps in Division I than it would be in Division III. You're still going to have a season where you're training and playing games. But in terms of the season itself, regular season, from my experience, I can't say anything that would be different than someone that was playing in a Division I school, for example. In terms of the travel that we did, being down in Texas, we would always be, catching, flights somewhere else in the country to play games at the weekend. We'd leave on a Thursday, we'd get back on maybe a Sunday, which certainly makes things challenging from an academic point of view of keeping up with classes and doing homework on the road and assignments. But yeah, there's certainly going to be a lot of, talk about the playing levels as well. You look at some of the top Division III schools, they're going to have players in there that are going to be choosing Division III over, say, Division I options that they had. So what does that come down to? It could be a number of different things, whether the Division III school that they're looking to go to has a program they're interested in, maybe they're higher ranked in terms of a certain part of their education they're looking to pursue. And it can come down to a relationship with the coach, and it can come down to the playing time options that might be available. Like I said, there's a lot of Division III schools that are going to have a lot of players that are good enough to play Division I, no question about it. And really, I think it comes down to depth of squads. Division I squads are going to be deep with a lot of very talented players, whereas a lot of players are going to be starting at the top end of Division III are definitely good enough to play at that level, and might end up pursuing that. But otherwise, they might decide, I found a home where I am. I've made a good decision in my recruiting process, and they feel valued as a student, as an athlete, and they want to stay there for the entire 4 years and make the most of that experience playing college soccer, which certainly gives you playing against a lot of very, very good teams around the country.
Thanks, Murray. And Craig, from your perspective, anything you would add to that?
Murray touched on virtually everything, I think, honestly. I completely agree. We'll speak in generalizations. Generally, Division I programs will have better talent. Generally, Division I schools are larger. Murray said it very well, though. You will occasionally have a Division I that is a small school. The one that I always use as my example is Monmouth University in New Jersey. They're not a big school. They have less than 5,000 students. But Murray touched on the examples in Division III that are very large schools. Those Wisconsin schools, the New Jersey and New York State schools, they can have enrollments of in excess of 20 and 30. Even those Wisconsin schools, Oshkosh may have 40,000 students. So while Division I does have the bigger schools, the more recognizable names, the Ohio States, the UCLAs, Michigan, Tennessee, what have you, Division III at times will have those academic schools that are not just nationally known, but internationally known, the likes of a Johns Hopkins University or Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, rival WPI, but I'll let that go. Those schools have, not just name recognition on this continent, but across the globe. And as such, they have the academic merits that might attract top tier talent from, again, not just this continent, but across the globe. Division III historically can allow a student athlete a bit more balance to their life because Division III is not one of the scholarship divisions of Division I or Division II. They don't have that carrot that can be held over the student athlete's head that they have to meet certain performance criteria in order to continue their scholarship allotment that has been given to them by the coach or the institution. As such, they are allowed to have a greater student life balance in terms of academics and life outside of both the classroom and the playing field. Murray touched on it very well. The non-traditional segment in Division III, aka the spring season, because college soccer is a fall sport here in the U.S. In Division I and Division II, they almost never stop. They get the break at Christmas, and then they get right into their spring segment as soon as they're back in January. In Division III, if we do that, majority of my career, it was only 6 weeks. For all of Murray's playing career, it was only a 6-week window where they were allowed the 18 dates. Now they've upped that to the 8 weeks and can have the 24 dates for the Division III non-traditional segment in the spring semester. So it's much more conducive and condensed to allow that balance for the student athletes. So Division III, it comes down, I think, to preference of what the student wants. Again, I touched on those things earlier, the academics, the size of school, the location of school, and just finding the right fit, finding that right balance for the student athlete and their family.
That's great insight from you both there. So, Sally, if someone had a leaning for a more academic route, do you think D3 would be the better option? Obviously, it's going to depend on the individual athletes, but is that something that would make Division III stand out a little bit more for you?
Yeah, definitely. And when I was going through the process, it was something that stood out for me mainly because of the conversations you have with the coaches, and like I said, how valued you're going to feel. Are you going to go into an environment where yes, let's say that the rankings of the academic program that you're looking at are going to be equivalent to the D1 school you're talking to or the D3 school you're talking to. Then it's going to come down to where you're going to, how many boxes can you take? Are you going to feel more at home in the Division I or the Division III school with the program? How committed you are to playing to the sport? Now, you're going to have to be very committed to play on any level of college soccer, any program that you're going to be on. But if it comes down to making that decision and saying, okay, I'm speaking to this coach in Division I, and I'm not really hearing back from him much, or I'm only expect to be a bit part player, or I might only be a kind of reserve level player where I'm not going to get much playing time, versus the opportunity to spend 4 years at college pursuing the degree that you want at a highly ranked university, and you're going to be a key member of that athletic program as well. That's a much more enjoyable experience if sports are a big part of your experience and what you want to achieve. And it certainly makes for a great experience when you're at college soccer, being involved with that. Maybe you can have the chance to be recruited on a very successful team and win a lot of games and go very far into the tournament. If it's a team, say in any division that's maybe they're doing okay and they have a chance to maybe get into conference tournament, but their season could be finished in late October or early November. Maybe the D3 school that you're talking to can give you a chance to go into national tournaments, compete until maybe December, maybe go and win a national tournament and be part of the history of a program. And like you said, a lot of those schools can be generally smaller, so you're going to be an opportunity to have much smaller class sizes where you get a more of a kind of one-to-one education with your professors. You're going to be in an environment where you have a lot of support academically with advisors, and have a chance to, properly take the courses aligned with your degree in a system that's going to work for you in terms of the balance between the season and the spring, and find out which is going to be the most suitable way to do your degree. So, these Division III schools, a lot of them, I was looking earlier through lists of endowments and, the donations that colleges get, the assets that they have, and of the top 50 endowments in the United States, 21 of them were Division III schools, and they tend to be extremely well funded and have a lot of opportunity for very impressive facilities, whether that's athletic or academic, and invest a lot of money into things like high quality professors who are very qualified, and have a chance to speak with them more personally than maybe you would at a large institution, where you're maybe in an auditorium of 300 to 400 people at a time, rather than maybe a class size like I was involved in, with, is maybe 10 students in a class or 15 students in a class. So there's a lot of things to obviously consider during that pathway and that process. And I think a lot of things about Division III perhaps are maybe misunderstood, or it's the third division, it's the third best, but there's a lot of institutions in there that would be exceptional institutions to get a degree from, and to have a college soccer experience combined with that education that you might not get in other divisions.
Thanks, Murray. And Craig, I know we've discussed the kind of strength of D3 in your own area in Massachusetts. It'd be quite useful just to find out some of the higher profile colleges, some of the names that people might want to hear about, that you competed against or are more familiar with, and talk us through just some of the conferences in the Massachusetts area as well.
Well, I'll go one better, I guess. For the majority of my career and Murray's entire career playing at Trinity, Massachusetts was part of the New England region, and Division III was subdivided into 8 regions. And only in the last 2 years have we seen the 8-region model replaced with the 10-region model, and now New England is both Region 1 and Region 2. But I'll touch upon the New England region. Within the New England region, for the majority of my career, there were 8 Division III conferences. New England was the most saturated area in the country for Division III. And of those 8 conferences, you kind of have to start with what is widely regarded as not only one of the best academic Division III conferences, but also largely regarded as the most competitive and highest level Division III athletic conference, not just for the sport of men's soccer, but pretty much across almost every sport that the NCAA offers. And that, unfortunately, is the New England Small College Athletic Conference, the NESCAC. And I say, unfortunately, only in jest, because being a New England Division III coach, I had to face those NESCAC teams more times than I care to count. And I came close to a draw once, but they pulled it out in the end. And unfortunately, for a 17-year career, I went winless against the NESCAC. Not to say that my program, as I mentioned before, we had a nationally ranked year, a year in which we went undefeated too. We didn't play a NESCAC school in that season. But the NESCAC, which is 11 schools in the New England area, one of which is outside of New England, I believe I know them all. Someone can count real quick. 3 in Maine are Bates, Bowdoin, and Colby. 3 in Massachusetts are Williams, Amherst, and Tufts. 3 in Connecticut are Trinity, Wesleyan, Connecticut College. 1 in Vermont is Middlebury, and 1 in New York is Hamilton. Those 11 institutions, sometimes collectively referred to as the small Ivies, in homage to the Ivy League, are some of the oldest and most prestigious schools in the country. Williams, Amherst, and Bowdoin, I believe, happen to be the 3 single most selective liberal arts colleges in the country based upon acceptance rates. I would dare to guess that many of the schools I just named might have been represented in that list of top 50 endowments because of both their age as well as their academic prestige, which has allowed their development offices probably to gain large gifts from their alumni. Likewise, after the NESCAC, there's another conference that I know quite well, as my former employer, Salve Regina University, just moved into it, and that is the New England Women's and Men's Athletic Conference, aka the NUMAC. That has a number of very prestigious academic schools in it, including the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the engineers. MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, as I said before, is internationally known as one of the most prestigious polytechnic schools of engineering on the planet. Also in the NUMAC is my alma mater, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, that other engineering school with MIT. We had a great rivalry, and I'm proud to say I never lost to MIT during my 4 years of undergraduate soccer. Another member school in that conference is Babson College. They are one of the most prestigious schools of business in the country. Other members of the NUMAC include Springfield College, Clark University, the United States Coast Guard Academy, one of only two Division III military schools, the other being the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, which is located at Kings Point, New York. Who else is in the NUMAC? Clark University, Wheaton College, Emerson College. And then they have three all-female schools, Mount Holyoke College, Wellesley College, and Smith College. So I've named the NESCAC and the NUMAC. The other Division III conferences in New England are the Commonwealth Coast Conference, which is where Salve Regina left. Member institutions in there include Gordon College, Roger Williams University, Endicott College. The Little East Conference, which is a 9-institution conference of state schools in and around New England: UMass Boston, UMass Dartmouth, EastCon, WestCon, Plymouth State. The GNAC, the Great Northeast Athletic Conference, which is actually 15 member schools, smaller Division III institutions, enrollments of under 4,000, under 3,000 students. The Massachusetts State College Athletic Conference, aka the MASCAC, that takes me to 6. I'm missing one. Who am I missing? Because the New England Collegiate Conference, which would be the 8th, unfortunately folded about 3 years ago, as a number of their schools, unfortunately, were unable to maintain enrollment. Just came to me. The North Atlantic Conference, the NAC, which is a group of schools located in Maine, Vermont, and upstate New York. My colleague, if he was on this call, would be yelling at me because Husson University, where our colleague Gavin Penny coached, is one of the powers of the North Atlantic Conference, along with Thomas College, plus the Vermont schools, Northern Vermont Johnson, Northern Vermont Linden. Who else is in that? There's a couple of schools in New York that don't come to mind, but those are the conferences that predominantly constitute New England Division III soccer. And again, the most powerful and most prestigious of them all, who had not just one but both participants in the Division III national title game this past fall, as Amherst College defeated their conference rival Connecticut College for the Division III men's soccer national championship. I'm sorry to report, Murray, I think the NESCAC has won more national titles over the last 10 years than any other conference in the nation, as Tufts was on a roll, claiming, I think, 6 titles in 7 years, plus Connecticut College chipped in and won their first national title. Amherst, the reigning champ, was their second title. God bless Coach Serpone. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Middlebury, as well as Williams from that conference, have also won national titles. So right there you have 5 different schools from one conference having won national championships. Williams, Amherst, Tufts, Conn, Middlebury. I'm trying to think if anybody else from the conference has won a national title. I think that's it. I think those 5 are the only ones. But to have one conference with 5 different institutions having won the national title in men's soccer, that is absolutely impressive.
Right, Murray. Craig set a pretty high bar there for his knowledge of his local areas. Let's hear a little bit about Texas from your experience.
Well, I think he might have. It's a tough one to beat, but I think maybe the NESCAC is. I don't think they've combined got the same amount as Messiah has won in the last 20 odd years. Maybe 13 or 14 by themselves. So
you might be right.
Messiah, hugely dominant school in Pennsylvania. I believe they're the MAC Commonwealth, I think that they're in, who won 13 titles in the last 20 odd years. But we would typically play, so Trinity University, we're in the SCAC, the Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference. So when I was playing, it has expanded in the last few years, and Trinity and Southwestern are also going into a new conference starting in this fall into the to the SAA. But when I was playing, we would play against Southwestern just north of Austin. We would play against Texas Lutheran, University of Dallas, Austin College, Centenary of Louisiana, and also Colorado College. Missing a couple as well. Shriner, they were in the Hill Country in Texas, really nice place. So we played home and away, and then we would play out of conference games that we would schedule. Usually, Paul McGinley would bring down the northern teams down to San Antonio for the first couple of weekends and make them suffer in the heat and give us a bit of a home advantage. So I think it must have been, we would travel away as well. We get some good away trips. So my first ever trip, my freshman year, I think I must have been on campus for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then we went to Southern California to play Redlands and Claremont Mudscripts. Again, the SCIAC, the Southern California Conference, has some hugely popular and really well established schools as well. Pomona, Pitzer, Caltech, I believe, are in that conference as well. Touched on Redlands, Occidental, really, really good school, great program as well. And so we kind of mixed up with a bunch of those guys, especially when it got to the NCAA tournament, when it's more kind of regionalized in the first couple of rounds. We'd typically play against the conference champion of the American Southwest Conference. So we'd often play against Hardin-Simmons, Mary Hardin-Baylor, University of Texas, Dallas, who have transitioned into Division II now. So we're typically in Texas, but obviously Texas is a massive place, so it often took long journeys to get there, 6 hours, 7 hours. Often we'd fly, and often when we're doing those trips, we'd be paired with different teams to travel into certain areas. So every weekend we'd play the same teams as somebody else. So often we'd be maybe go to Dallas for the Friday game, get on a plane, go to Colorado for the rest of the weekend to play Colorado College. So usually within conference there's a lot of travel, and of course when it gets to tournament time, then you're often going to be going up north, where a lot of the colleges tend to be based. So in my time, we went up to Chicago. We played against Wheaton. We played against the likes of Loras, Wartburg up in Iowa. Had some freezing cold games. I think the coldest game I've ever played in was up in Iowa. And then we also went up to my senior year. We were up in Massachusetts, and we played against Amherst in my final game. I think we defeated Brandeis in the Sweet 16 and then got to the Elite 8, which we did 3 years in a row. So our goal was always to win a national championship, and we'd start the season with that goal. You take it game by game, of course, and the first step is to win the conference. And 3 years in a row, we were one step away from that Final Four and making it. Especially when we were hosting, the Final Four was in San Antonio actually twice when I was there, and we couldn't manage to get to that. So that was unfortunate. But great experiences to play against different teams, and it's a huge country. It's almost continent size of it compared to like the likes of Europe, but you go into different areas of different style of play for a lot of different coaches. You're going to come up against an Iowa team that are going to be very physical. You go to Southern California, they're very technical, and there's a lot of different elements that are going to be different than what you might come up against elsewhere in conference. And teams are going to give you a good game regardless of where you go. They're going to give you everything they have, and it's whether it's more of a physical style they want to impose, or whether it's going to be more technical and play the ball around. You're going to be up against a team that's going to want to beat you. And thankfully, we won a lot of games and got to travel around a lot, which is a great experience for me. Obviously, coming over from Scotland and having a chance to see a lot of the United States was potentially one of the reasons I chose to go down to Trinity and have that experience. But yeah, the academics was also a big part in that too. So yeah, a lot of good teams down in Division III, different conferences. The North Coast Athletic Conference. A lot of the Wisconsin schools now are very strong as well, and there's a big soccer hub up there. Likes of Wisconsin Eau Claire this year had a phenomenal season. Minnesota's been strong in the past few years with St. Olaf winning the national title. Gustavus Adolphus, a very, very good team as well. And then the likes of the Ohio schools, Ohio Wesleyan have been a powerhouse in the last 30 odd years. Denison, a very, very good team. I watched them a lot this year, and they were very impressive. Ohio Northern also are up there as well. But it's tough to name them all because with 400 different schools in one division, you get a wide range of different places, and they look at a lot of the schools that are going to be at the top end in that tournament and in conference finals, and the level just gets better and better every single week, and to win a national title is in any division is going to be unbelievably difficult. So we got pretty close, but we didn't manage to get there in the end. But like Craig said, it's more you look back on it, and yes, we didn't win a national title, but the relationships and the friends that you have when you're there in your 4 years is what you take away from that. And you can come back to Scotland, and I have so many friends across the country, and you can go out and visit them, and go to weddings and all that good stuff too. So it's more than just a soccer element you take away from it, but yeah.
Good. Now, I think between you've covered about 200 of the 400, so I think that's really helpful just to hear some of the names and some of the conferences that you both played in and have watched as well. Just talking about the facilities then, Craig, is maybe a misconception that the facilities aren't as good in D3, but obviously we touched upon the investment through endowments. Describe maybe just some of the facilities that you came across in your role when you were visiting other teams.
I think the facilities sometimes are not only as comparable, but in rare instances even better than some Division I schools. Again, going back to the NESCACs, those schools that have garnered that level of prestige and likewise have that level of endowment have been able to invest their financial prowess into their facilities. MIT, outside of the NESCAC, has a beautiful turf facility that is located in George Steinbrenner Stadium, the same George Steinbrenner of the New York Yankees. Somehow there's a relationship between the Steinbrenners and MIT. I think George Steinbrenner himself actually went to MIT, and I believe he was a big track athlete. And the soccer pitch, the artificial turf facility, is located inside of the Steinbrenner track and stadium facility. So no, there are absolutely beautiful quality facilities. The nicest soccer field I think that I ever played on in my career is also one of the nicest grass fields I ever coached on. That is located at Babson College in Babson Park, Massachusetts. Their rival, which Murray brought up, Brandeis University, has a huge endowment. There's a Division III conference. We haven't mentioned the UAA, the United Athletic Association, a conference of institutions that have a huge focus on research in their undergraduate education. Brandeis University, New York University, Case Western Reserve University, Carnegie Mellon, University of Chicago, Washington University of St. Louis, Emory University in Atlanta. Those schools, likewise, very academically prestigious, absolutely breathtaking facilities, both in terms of their investment in their academics, the labs and research, as well as their athletic facilities and what they can offer their student athletes. I think you'll find that there are schools across this country, regardless of division, whether it be 1, 2, or 3, or even outside of the NCAA, NAIA, that have made a commitment to invest their capital into providing the resources to their student athletes on both sides of the aisle, both academically as well as athletically. And I would strongly encourage anyone who is considering these schools, do your research, take the visits, go and see the facilities firsthand, both the classrooms and labs, as well as the playing fields and weight rooms, so that you can see these facilities firsthand. As if you're going to go there and call it your home for 4 years, make sure you like it before you've made the investment yourself, both in terms of the tuition dollars and, most importantly, the time that you have to actually go out and play college soccer.
Good insights there, Craig. One for you, Murray. You talked about the kind of funding available, and obviously not the same athletic funding that you might get or you can get in D1, but it doesn't always mean that's going to be the case that it's more expensive. You obviously in your current role are dealing with athletes' budgets all the time. So from your perspective, what funding is available at D3 level for those who aren't aware?
Yeah, no, this is you can segue, I guess, a number of different ways through the financial aid aspect of this, and there's a number of different things to consider, and I won't go into too much specifics with it, but working with mainly international students in my current role, it's again very different from, say, US-based players or students that are looking to have funding. But generally speaking, with the financial aid options, and Craig can perhaps correct me if I'm wrong with this, as working with colleges, etc., being the head coach role. But typically, you're going to have institutions will do things differently depending on a number of factors. But you're going to have an option for some schools, maybe needs-based aid, where they want to have the chance to, if you're accepted into that institution, that no one should miss out on the opportunity because of they can't afford it. So they want to provide a package that's hopefully going to work, and they're going to do that by looking into a number of different elements, whether it's going to be your family situation. So household income is one way that they'll look at that, and they'll provide a package that works for you based off of now, it's not necessary to mean that they absolutely have to. Again, there's a lot of different categories for needs blind, etc. So they want that to give that student the chance to attend that university. So they'll give you the aid based off of family income, and if it's under a certain bracket, then perhaps they'll give you a larger percentage, if not all of the tuition, to be covered. Most common is going to be the merit aid. So merit aid is based off of academics. It's going to be using GPA, looking through class schedule, how rigorous that was, the grades that you have received, your SAT score, and put together merit aid packages that you qualify for. In some cases, for international students, it's different. Again, you'll maybe qualify for different things at these institutions. But the best thing to do is, obviously, when you're going through these conversations with the coaches, to ask about those questions when the time is right, of course, and to ask about the options and the stages to go through in the application process. Speak with admissions office. Take your time doing the applications. And go on websites and find out what it is that they offer and go through each section. But in most places, when it's the recruitment with an athletic coach, they're very well placed to talk you through the best steps to do that, and how to do that at certain times of the year as well. If it's going to be ahead of time, then perhaps doing the early decision application or regular decision, depending on the time of year, of course. In some cases, a school or a coach may want to do a pre-read, so they'll look through your academics kind of before this deadline in order to get an estimate as to what it's going to look like, and to maybe rule out, okay, yes, this is an option, or it may not be an option, and go through those conversations with each candidate, of course. So a lot of different options, and each school will have different packages available for internationals, for domestic students, whether it's needs-based, whether it's merit aids, but talk about the options, look through what you might qualify for. There's often perhaps ways to enter into academic excellence programs where you can submit some work and perhaps qualify for more aid. Obviously, with the US students, the FAFSA application is a big part of that needs-based aid as well, looking at certain things like tax documents and all that stuff too. But it's important to discuss with parents, with coaches, and to go through that process to get as much information as possible, so you're making the right decision from a financial perspective.
And Craig, you're pretty well placed to answer this question when it comes to engaging with coaches with your years of experience there. So what advice would you give to the aspiring athletes in the audience this evening when it comes to having the best approach to speaking and engaging with a coach in your college soccer journey?
Hire FirstPoint USA to manage the process for you would be my first piece of advice.
Good answer.
Curious would appreciate me throwing that in. Honestly, be forthright. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, the early bird gets the worm. Figure out the things you want: size of school, location of school, academic major, soccer, and figure out your list from that, and then direct your communication to the head coach. In my 17 years as a Division III head men's soccer coach, I took it upon myself to try to reply to every email and every phone call that came into my office. I didn't want to leave any stone unturned. in the hopes that, that next player that I was going to, respond to was going to be the proverbial All-American for me and go on to have that prolific career that led my program to greatness. But, you got to take the first step. You got to send that email. When sending that email, please do your homework. One of the things that I never wanted to really read in an email from a prospective student athlete was, so can you tell me what your record was last season? When I got that, it was a major turnoff for me, because that said to me that the student athlete hadn't done his homework on my program, because he was asking me a question where the answer was readily available on the internet. Likewise, I didn't like it when they said, so how many seniors are on your roster? Same thing. That answer is readily available on the internet. Just look up my roster, count the seniors. You don't need to be asking me as the head coach that question. The questions that I wanted to get asked were things like, will you be attending this event? What are you looking for technically or tactically in your recruiting class? What types of student athletes do you look for to bring into your program? Things that were not readily available in my bio, on my website, on my schedule, where they could look up the answer themselves. I wanted student athletes that, had already done that homework, already knew those things about my program, knew that my school didn't offer engineering, because when a student athlete would email me about, pursuing mechanical engineering, it was like, well, check with my alma mater, Worcester Polytech. Don't email as the Salve Regina head coach. I don't have an engineering program. What I wanted was student athletes that did their homework, knew the majors we had, knew what our record was last season, knew that our arch rival was Roger Williams University, and were wishing us luck in our upcoming Bayside Derby match. Those kind of things resonated with me as a head coach and made the student athlete, at the very least, more attractive to me before I saw them play. Because honestly, it didn't matter how great the email was, if they didn't have the ability, that technical ability, tactical awareness, work rate on and off the ball, then they weren't going to, unfortunately, find their way onto my recruiting list.
Murray, again, you're dealing with prospective student athletes. Any advice that you're regularly giving out on when it comes to speaking to coaches?
Yeah, communication is always the most important thing from the player's perspective, from a prospective student athlete. You got to reply promptly with those coaches. Coaches aren't sitting at a desk in a 9-to-5 job, just doing emails and texts all day. They're very busy. They're out in the soccer field. They're recruiting. They could be traveling around the country. There's a lot of parts to they're very, very busy people. There's a lot of parts of their day that they just can't have access to, maybe emails or texts. So when you do get a chance, when you do get an email from a coach, following up with them is always the best. Quickly is the best way to do it. Show that you're interested. Like Craig said, do research. Think of questions to ask the coach that are most important, to you, rather than maybe just general questions. Think about your experience, what you're looking for, what is the best things you want to know on that call when you have that coach. And when you get a chance to speak to a coach, then it's always best to, they're looking for good players. They're looking for guys who can do well academically, but they're looking for good young people to come into their program and make a good impression, who are willing to learn, who are going to be coachable, who are going to be a positive influence on the culture that the coach is set for his team and that the leaders in the team have set. And I tell the guys that I work with, I say to them, go into that call and in 4 years' time, he's going to want you to be the senior who's the leader, who's setting that example to the next class when they're coming in 4 years' time. And if he feels as if he's impressed with what you can offer and what kind of person you are, the personality you have, then that's a big help in that recruiting process. And they're going to certainly if they're on the fence before the call, maybe looking at footage and it's like, okay, we've got 2 guys that can play right back. This guy might be the third choice. But speaking to you on the call, you present yourself really well, and you come across as if you're going to come in and fight for that first spot, and you show up in preseason and do exactly what you say and work really hard. Then there's a chance that you can move up the board really quickly and be a big part of that program and make a lasting impact over your 4 years there. But it's definitely difficult coming out of high school when it's the first time that maybe you have this chance to maybe speak to a lot of coaches, or it's a kind of first, I guess, interview style, like, calls that you might have in your young life. So having a chance just to be honest and to speak and to ask those questions and find out the information is the most important thing. If a coach reaches out to you via email and you look at the coach, or you look at the school online and maybe there's a couple of things and you see in rankings or whatever it might be that aren't quite what you thought it might be, don't let that put you off. Always have that chance to speak to the coach. They can talk about the development they have for you, what they envision that you can have, the experience you can have there. They can discuss the academics. We just invested all this money in this new business facility that you're looking to study business or something along those lines. So there's a lot of things you won't get from those conversations or from researching online that you might just get having that conversation with the coach. And it might just be that ultimate fit that turns your head towards that program. I guess that applies for any division. But if there's specifically at Division III, if it's going to be a specific academic course that you're looking for, don't hesitate to ask the coach about those academics. Ask about if he's got any players that are studying that program. Maybe he can put you in touch with them. You can have a bit more information that will kind of complete all the things that you're looking to make a decision. Perhaps you can introduce to a member of faculty in the department and help you with that as well. So gathering information is key, and don't let time go too long. Coaches are looking at a lot of different players in all positions, and if time goes by, then he might be looking at another player. That position might have been filled already. So definitely timing is a big part of that to help with the process.
Good advice. Hopefully that's giving you some insight into engaging with coaches, which is a key part of the process. I've got a couple of good questions come in, which I'll fire to the guys just now. The first one from Anna, who asks, how far in advance do Division III schools pick the roster for the soccer team? And are there many juniors who'd already given offers to play for these schools? Maybe one for you, Craig.
How far do they pick their rosters in advance? You mean in terms of the recruiting class, I guess? Is that what she's asking about? How far?
I think so, yeah.
Juniors getting offers. I never offered a junior for a single roster spot in my 17-year career. I know a number of the head men's coaches in the NESCAC personally as well as professionally. I don't think many of them offered juniors, honestly. The thing about Division III is, and we've touched upon it several times, without the ability to offer the athletic scholarship, we do not have the right to sign any student athlete to a commitment. Division III recognized this a number of years ago, that we didn't have the proverbial signing day, and they came up with a non-binding celebratory signature form, which they distributed out to the membership. As the former compliance director, as well as head men's soccer coach for my institution, I was in charge of that celebratory signing form. But it's just that, it's a celebration. It's not binding. As such, not having anything binding, it doesn't behoove a Division III institution to try to get a junior in high school to commit, simply because in the event that they are ever recognized and recruited by a Division I or Division II institution, who can then offer them scholarship money and sign them to a national letter of intent, which is binding as a contract, we would then be losing the recruit and losing the roster spot that we saved for them. So no, Division III doesn't typically try to get juniors to commit to them, simply because it would create too much of a potential liability down the line in terms of filling the recruiting class each and every year.
Thanks, Craig. And one for you, Murray. This one from a parent. How can a parent get a true understanding of where a player would fit either on a D1, D2, or D3 level before high school graduation? And is there a neutral party evaluation available? I mean, I guess that kind of talks to your role a little bit as to where a player might fit.
Yeah, and certainly it depends where you are, of course. If you're international, then it's going to rely a lot more heavily on video footage. There's maybe less options to come across and visit campuses and talk to coaches and to have that experience. In some cases it can happen, of course, but for domestic US students, again, it'll vary widely on where you're located and what tournaments your son or daughter is going to be playing at, and finding out where the coaches are going to be attending. But often, as Craig said, the camps are usually a best way to see the location, see the facilities, speak to the coaching staff. But often, a lot of these coaches are going to be out traveling as well, visiting these tournaments, and emailing schools that you're interested in, and finding out where they're going to be, what events they're going to be attending is always going to be a good way to go through that process. And then for building a video footage compilation highlight video, either having it professionally done, like something we can help with at FirstPoint USA, and helping that build that video footage and that montage that's going to show your best highlights. If a coach isn't able to see you live, not every single Division III school is going to want to see you play in person. There's a chance you're going to have a chance to be recruited via video, and having the best highlight video you can with all the key points positionally is going to vary from what's most important as well, and having that kind of recap of academics in that kind of email when it's been sent out to coaches is always key as well. Giving all the coaches all that information makes a difference, and there's no such. Craig might not want to be bombarded as a coach with hundreds of emails a day, but if you don't hear from a coach, then I always think that reaching out again is always a good option. As I said, they're very busy people, and maybe getting that feedback if it's available from coaches is going to be the deciding factor. They may tell you that the roster is full. Going back to the last question as well, is time of year will change for every single college, and some schools are going to have those rolling admissions, so there's going to be options even in the likes of the spring semester here. While some schools are going to be complete with their rosters, there's still going to be openings that are going to be out there, and it's just about finding those colleges that are still looking for players. Highlight footage is obviously crucial. Good quality video where you can see the full field and see that player in that position, and be highlighted correctly. And then using the best channels to reach out to those coaches is a big part, and that's my main job, is obviously connecting with coaches, building those relationships, and finding those opportunities for our players and student athletes as well. It's such a wide division, especially in Division III, and there's a number of different levels that are going to be out there. So it's just about finding the key points and exploring those options when they do come through, talking to coaches, etc.
Thanks, Marion. I guess the final one coming. You've probably touched upon this already, Craig, but would you say that some deep programs like a Middlebury or Amherst are akin to some of the Ivy League or Patriot League programs? I think you called them the small Ivies. Would that be correct?
As in similar academically and athletically?
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely. So I used
academically, yeah.
Yeah, I used to work at the Amherst camp. Puma Peak Performance Academy is what it's called, and it's run by the Amherst College head men's soccer coach, Justin Serpone. And in working the camp, I got to somewhat peek into his recruiting philosophy as well as timeline. And there was a number of times where he had recruits who were waiting on decisions to be made by Ivy League schools at Brown or Harvard or Yale or Cornell or Columbia. So the NESCAC schools of Amherst, Connecticut College, Middlebury, Williams, Bowdoin, they'll directly recruit against the Ivy League schools simply because from an academic standpoint, they're on the exact same tier with each other. Those schools are the most academically reputable in the entire country. They're on par with the MITs, the Johns Hopkins, the Stanfords. So yes, I would say that from an academic standpoint, most definitely the Middleburys are in the same breadth and area as the Ivy League and even the Patriot League as well, the Lafayette, the Lehigh, the Bucknells. So I don't think Bucknell left the Patriots to join the Atlantic 10. There's so much shifting in college soccer and college sports, not only in Division I, but even in Division III. The school I worked at left the Commonwealth Coast Conference and went to the NUMAC. So it even trickles down to Division III, where schools are realigning to join new conferences.
Okay. Again, one possibly for both of you. Do you care if the students play high school, or do you like players that would play club soccer? Is there obviously some can do both, but is there a preference in your eyes?
From my side of things, it's going to be a little different with, being in the UK. At least from some Scottish schools will be very, very good, but generally speaking, it'll be the club perspective, I think, can be at the higher level. Certainly with around the UK as well, players playing in academy levels with professional clubs, whilst also representing their school, and there's certain honours you can have from that. Certainly, it'll be a different model in the US with I think high school being the kind of spring sport. Is it, Craig?
No.
Okay, well,
depends where in the country you are. In the Northeast, it's the fall. Out west, it's a winter sport in California. And then in other sections of the country, it's a spring sport. So it all depends geographically where you are in terms of high school soccer.
Yeah.
Okay, and final question from me, and this one's for both of you to kind of round it off. Looking back as on your own time as student athletes playing Division III, what were the best aspects about playing college soccer?
I would say that the environment we had as a culture was phenomenal. It was the best times of the year was going in for pre-season, and to be able to compete against and to drive each other on with what we achieved the previous year, trying to better that. Sometimes when you lose one game a season, it's very difficult to better that, maybe just by losing no games, I guess, and win the national championship. But it's very competitive. You're going to be in for a long 3 or 4 months of hard work. You've got your academics that are going to be tough, going to class throughout the week and training every day. The travel that's involved, it can be tough. So having good people around you, and that's what we always tried to do within our squad, was just to inspire each other and to work together to have a common goal to succeed. And those are great times. I loved our chance of playing against other colleges. In the springtime, we schedule games against Division I teams, and we beat the likes of SMU, and we beat Incarnate Word, our kind of cross city rivals in San Antonio. And I don't think we lost a game against higher ranked or higher division opposition, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, it's a great environment. Getting a chance to travel around was a great experience for me, and to be in a place where you built so many great friendships was definitely a great part of that.
Yeah, I'll dovetail right off of that. For me, it was the relationships. I'm much farther afield from my playing days than Murray is, but I still talk to a few of my teammates from my 4 years of college soccer, and I was very fortunate to then make college soccer my profession, in that I became a head coach. And even then, the relationships that I made with my players as a head coach, and now that I've left the coaching ranks in the university, I still keep in touch with a great many of my alums. We have a way to talk and communicate where we have group chats based upon which professional team they support, or in case for me, don't support, as I am a member of all those group chats, even though I don't support any of those clubs. I was just the one who formulated the group chats. But it's the relationships you make, the friendships you forge. And again, it's the commonality of soccer that brings you together. But you then go forth with a shared experience of what soccer gave you on the playing field. And even more so, for me, some of my best memories were on the training pitch, formulating what we were going to then do on match day. The inside jokes that only we got, that no one else, any spectator, or anyone passing by the pitch wouldn't understand, but that we thought were hilarious. Those are the things that I take away, and to this day still remember very fondly, and even now make me smile. So the relationships that soccer allows you to have, those are the greatest pearls that you'll take away from the game in your college playing days.
That's great. That's I think a great line to round that off, Craig. Just the relationships, and I guess the commonality that brings everybody together in soccer is a great thing for us all to share, and hence why everybody's on this call this evening. So just on behalf of everybody at FirstPoint, from myself, from Murray, and from Craig, we'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening. Hopefully the guys have given you some really good insights on Division III, what it's like to play, to help you through your own sort of decision-making process, to give you a bit of a flavour of the opportunities that are out there, and certainly some fantastic ones that the guys have touched upon tonight. You know, whether you're staying fairly locally or if you're going to travel further afield, some great options out there for you. We at FirstPoint are only too happy to help you. So if you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to drop us a line. We'll make a recording available of the webinar. So I know some of you joined a little bit later, so the full version will be put on our YouTube channel. We will send a newsletter just so you've got a copy of the recording as well. So yeah, thanks for joining. We've got another webinar taking place a week tonight for those interested. This one's about D1, and we've got Chad Riley, head coach of Notre Dame's men's soccer program, with us next Monday, and we'll have a few more announced. So quite a good thing, hopefully, for you to keep an eye on and hopefully glean a little bit more insights from us. So again, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and yeah, feel free to give us a shout. Thank you.